Ladies and gentlemen, we have just a little change in procedure because of the lighting. This section over here on my left, to your right, is a voting section for registered voters. Non-voters are on the opposite side, and that's to give voters a little better opportunity to have better lighting. So if you're in an area that you don't feel has good lighting, this section over here is for voters, so a little different than what we traditionally have done. We're almost at the time to open this meeting, and before I open the meeting, I just want to share with you that I had the opportunity to travel to Great Britain the beginning of the month, and on our travels had the opportunity to visit Wareham, England. We spent the day with the mayor, the deputy mayor, the town clerk, and the 16 members of their town council. They wanted me to bring back to our community their wishes and well wishes and to say hello to all of you from them. We had an amazing, amazing day with them, and we do have an invitation to return and actually to stay with the former mayor, who is now a council member, and I am sure, because of the experience that we had, we will go back and visit. It was an amazing, amazing experience, and I thank you all for giving us that opportunity to meet with them. It just was amazing. So as you can tell, we had a good time. Yeah, and we went on our own. It wasn't anything by the town. After the town meeting, I'll try to post some pictures up. I just, from coming back from 2 weeks of overseas travel, didn't have the time to get some up, but we'll share a lot of the photos that we took of Wareham, what the town looks like, and give you some sense of their community versus our community. So I'm going to ask you all to take your seats. I want to make sure that the non-voters are in the far side to my right, to your left, and the voting section is over here. Again, because of the lighting, we needed to do a little rearranging. I will declare a quorum being present, and I will declare the meeting called to order. The town clerk has certified to me that the warrant has been duly posted in all of the places that are necessary. I will now ask you to stand and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you would remain standing just for a short moment, for a moment of silence. We had several members of our community that have provided service to the town that have passed away since our last meeting. Sandra Bessie. Sandy was always honored to serve her community. She was known for her infectious smile, her loving spirit, and commitment to the community through her volunteerism. She was recognized as Wareham's Woman of the Year, and her contributions to Onset will long be remembered. Over the years, she was a member of the Onset Bay Association, the Zoning Board, the Wareham Finance Committee, and the Onset Prudential Committee. William Cook. Mr. Cook was appointed to the Onset Fire Department in 1956 and served in many, many roles. He was appointed to Lieutenant of Engine 1 in 1973, promoted to captain in 1975, and in 1985 became deputy chief until retiring in 1997. He then remained as a call firefighter until July of 2016, when he hung up his helmet for the last time. He also worked as a foreman for the Town of Wareham Municipal Maintenance Department for many years. He was a member of the Box 5 Association in Onset and the Plymouth County Firefighter Forest Wardens Association. Peter Koval. Peter spent his career in the Wareham Public Schools, first as a high school English teacher and then as principal of the Minor Forest School. Peter volunteered at Toby Hospital in Wareham and was a member of the Toby Guild. Earl Fowler. Captain Fowler was appointed as a call firefighter on the Onset Fire Department on April 1st, 1972. In 1982, he was appointed as a lieutenant of Ladder 1 and promoted to captain in 1999. He served as an active reserve captain on the department. Mr. Fowler was a former auxiliary police officer for the Wareham Police Department and also a former Wareham District firefighter. He was a trustee for the Buzzards Bay Eagles, Sergeant-at-Arms for the American Legion Post 40 in Plymouth, and president of the Box 5 Association. If we could take a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I know wearing masks is difficult. We've turned on the air condition. Hopefully it will cool off a little bit. I will allow that if you go to the microphone, you could just pull your mask down just a little bit so that we can clearly understand. It's often in a room like this difficult to hear speakers anyway. So I will allow that, but then please, before you leave the microphone, put your mask back on. I'd like to introduce our town clerk, Michelle Bissonette, town council, attorney Richard Bowen, town administrator Derek Sullivan, the deputy moderator Joe Ashley, the board of selectmen, chairman Judith Whiteside, when we have Selectman Patrick Trombiano, Selectman Teitelbaum, Selectman Slavin, and Selectman Jim Muniz. I can't see that far down the aisle, so I'm going to make, we have Chairman Bernie Pigeon. And Bernie, if you want to introduce the rest, it's kind of dark over there, so I don't miss anybody.
Yes, we have my vice chairman and my right is David Hurd, Jody Smith, Jerry Cassidy, Stewart, Sylvie, Matt Rose, and Tom Worthy.
Thank you. I'm sorry, it's just that it's dark, and with a mask, it's a little difficult to recognize people. Town meeting needs some rules to govern its meeting. The duties of the moderator and procedures of town meeting not specifically provided for by law are determined by the rules contained in the 75th edition of Robert's Rules of Order, town meeting time, town meeting tradition, and those rules set forth by the moderator to regulate the meeting. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 39, Section 15, whenever a two-thirds vote is required by statute, a vote may be declared by the moderator without account and recorded as such by the clerk upon such declaration. Provided, however, that if 7 or more voting members of town meeting doubt the vote, a counted vote shall be taken. This is in accordance with Article 12 of the October 27, 2003 town meeting and approved by the Attorney General on November 21, 2003. If a vote is required, in order to be counted, you must be seated. You need to hold your cards up high, and the tellers, once they have completed counting your row, they will ask you to put them down, but do not put them down until you're told. The warrant, which was duly posted in every precinct and posted on the town website, is the agenda for tonight's meeting. Only items on the agenda may be discussed. Town meeting does not come to an end until all of the agenda items on the warrant have been decided either by an approval, by being defeated, or by no action deliberately taken. I will ask for a motion for each article, and voters should listen carefully so that the motion is stated, since the vote and the debate is on the motion. Now, the motion may be slightly different than what you might have in your printed warrant, so pay attention to the actual motion. To make it easier for voters in the hall, we show the motions up on the screen as they will be voted upon. Following the motion, the moderator will ask the proponent to speak to the motion, and then I will ask the Board of Selectmen for the vote of the board, and then the vote and recommendation for the Finance Committee, and then debate will be open. Voters should approach either of the two microphones and you must be recognized by the moderator before speaking. I will ask that no more than 2 people go to the microphone at any given time, and that you safely distance between you and the person in front of you. Clearly state your name, and keep in mind that remarks must be limited to the content and specifics of the article, and are directed to the moderator, through the moderator, to town meeting. Everyone must be civil, respectful to others. Personal attacks have never been allowed. There will be no calling out, no applause, no rude behavior, and any person who persists in disorderly conduct will be warned by the moderator and asked to leave. Now, the reason we ask for no applause is because if I allow you to applaud, then we also have to give the opportunity to those of the opposing that want to boo to be able to boo. So that's why we don't allow applause. It's been tradition that the proponent of the articles will have 5 minutes to speak, and that voters wishing to speak to the articles have 2 minutes. The moderator, I may choose that not to cut someone off immediately at the end of their allotted time if they're in a mid-sentence. And we will give the person speaking a warning that the time is concluding, so you have a little heads up. I may also stop a speaker before the end of the 2 minutes if you're merely repeating something that we've heard over and over and over. So if you come to the microphone, please to bring new information to the body. I will exercise my discretion as a moderator in ascertaining the overall status of the issue or discussion or debate and what's been said. The moderator presides and regulates the meeting, decides all questions of order, and makes the public declaration of votes. Amendments. To offer an amendment, a voter needs to give the text to the town clerk in writing, and the moderator will recognize the mover of the amendment, and the amendment will then be debated and will be voted up or down before returning to the article as a whole. Amendments to amendments are not allowed. Reconsideration. A motion to reconsider, if approved by a simple majority, enables the majority in an assembly to bring back for further consideration a motion that has already been voted on. The purpose of reconsideration is to permit a correction of some hasty, ill-advised, or erroneous action, or to take into account added information or a changed situation that developed since taking the vote. So for reconsideration, it must be moved on the same day the vote is to be reconsidered. That's if we go an extra night. It must be made by a member who voted on the prevailing side. It must be seconded, and it is debatable. Okay, so keep in mind, reconsideration will only be permitted if there was hasty, ill-advised, or erroneous action. So again, I just want to remind non-voters to be on that side. If you're sitting anywhere else, please move over. We do have a photo policy with town meeting. Broadcasting and recording town meeting falls within the scope of the moderator's power to regulate proceedings at his or her discretion. Keeping in mind that such recording is a privilege and not a right. Permission to take photos must have been sought prior to the start of this meeting, and I have given only permission to the members of the press who are sitting over in the right-hand side. So I do not want to see any photos on Facebook taken by anyone else at this meeting because we've not been given permission. If for some reason we have an emergency and need to leave the auditorium, and we have to go out and then we come back in, please make sure you come back in this main door so that we can check you back in and make sure that only voters are coming in. Now, one reminder, there's no smoking on school property, so if you want to go out and have a smoke, you need to leave the school property. And if you're parked in the fire lane, I would suggest that you might want to go out and move your vehicle because it will get towed. No food or drink other than water is allowed in the auditorium. I will ask that if you did bring water in with you and you finish your bottle, please do not leave it on the floor. We've had past meetings where the janitor has had to take a half an hour after we've left to clean up. and I don't think that's fair. So if you have a bottle of water, please take it. There's trash outside. So before we begin, would the Board of Selectmen wish to address the body?
Yes, thank you, Madam Moderator. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're gathered here as members of the community of Wareham to make decisions that are for the benefit of the community. You will hear the Finance Committee use the word sustainability several times. Is a project sustainable? And what does sustainable mean? Our budget has been balanced for years due to the excellent fiscal management of Mr. Sullivan and his team. You've heard him and many others say that without increased revenue, the town cannot provide more services. We know that virtually every town department is being managed without optimum staffing. And because we are limited by law and statute as to how much we can increase our levy limit, each year we see the perfect example of the shrinking dollar. Our dollar can buy less and less. The number of services the town can provide continues to shrink. We have been able to do some incredible things because of our excellent bond rating. Building the new elementary school, a project several years in the making, is a perfect example of long-range, thoughtful planning. And long-range, thoughtful, fiscally responsible planning is what we must continue. The WRA has proven that thoughtful, long-range planning is effective. A supermajority of the Board of Selectmen do not support changing something that is working well. Let us all recognize that whatever our opinions may be, cooperative efforts on behalf of the town yield results that benefit the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the Chairman of the Finance Committee wish to address the body?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. To reference what the Chairman of the Board of Selectmen has said, we are the ones who control all those decisions that we support financially. This body, we are the town of Wareham. If there are shortcomings in our departments and the inability to perform all the services we would like them to do, we are making that choice. It's a serious issue because it affects everybody, friends, neighbors, and our own personal lives. We take what we do here seriously, and we are concerned with everybody that I mentioned, neighbors, friends, and even who are our visitors. What we do here this evening is very serious, even though in our discussions we oftentimes talk about. That's because we're all very concerned with who we are, and what we do. And I thank you all for being here and for taking all that responsibility seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. I was remiss in not introducing Patty Neal, who's the administrative assistant to our town administrator. I apologize. And Dominic Camerano just entered. He is on the Finance Committee as well. So now that we have everybody, we will move on. In order to expedite town meeting, town moderators usually try to make use of what's called the consent agenda. Warrant articles on a consent agenda are the exception to the general process of town meeting. The town administrator, the select board chair, the FinCom chair, and the moderator identify for town meeting consideration those articles that they believe should generate no controversy and can be properly voted without debate. These articles are put on a consent agenda to allow a motion under the articles to be acted upon as one unit and to be passed without any discussion or debate. We have several tonight, and I will go through them. You will see them up on the screen. I will go over them. If you want them left in the consent agenda, then I will not hear any sound. If you want them taken out of the consent agenda, please say hold, and we will put them back into the normal rotation, and at that point, then we will discuss them. So we have articles, actually, it should be Article 4, 5, Derek? 4, 5, and 6?
Not 5.
5 is done. 5 is the union contract. That was,
So 5, right?
no.
No? Okay. So just 4, 6,
Yep.
7, 8, 9, 12, 13, and 14. So Article 4. Article 4 is an article that comes up every year. This is an amount that's transferred to the Receipts Reserved for Appropriations account for WCTV. Comcast and Verizon pay the town of Wareham, and on a vote of town meeting, we're required to transfer those monies to the Wareham Community Television Fund account. This is a direct transfer of funds and has no impact on your tax rate. Article 6. Article 6 is to amend the Tremont Nail Factory building and grounds. Actually, it's to amend the revolving fund table. The article simply seeks to add the words debt and repayments to the Community Preservation Fund Tremont Nail Building Grounds Revolving Fund use in the revolving fund table. Currently, all rents, fees charged, and fundraising done at or for the Tremont Nail site would be deposited into that account and only used for the operating cost of the building and grounds. If a master developer is chosen and the town rents the facility, then those rental fees should not go back into the operating cost of the building and grounds, as those financial obligations should be the responsibility of the master developer. Article 7. Article 7, community preservation funds are used to pay both the principal and the interest on the $1,430,000 bond approved at the 2018 Fall Town Meeting for the cleanup of the Tremont Nail site. This article is to see if the town will vote to appropriate from Community Preservation Undesignated Fund or any other monies available in the Community Preservation Act Fund under the category of historic preservation payment for the long-term debt payment, the long-term debt interest payment, and the short-term debt principal payment on that bond. Article 8. Article 8 is the Community Preservation Fund Reserves Adjustment. You want to hold Article 7? Oh. Okay. Okay, sorry. Article 8. Article 8 is to see if the town will vote to reserve for future appropriation from community preservation undesignated funds the amounts of $26,900 to open space reserves and $26,900 to affordable housing reserves. Community preservation is required by law to I'm going to take this out so I can see it in the light. I have a shadow here. Community preservation is required by law to reserve 10% of the fiscal year's revenue for historical preservation, affordable housing, and open space recreation grants. In FY 2021, CPC estimated CPA revenue of $1 million, and the total for FY 21 was actually $1,268,659. CPA needs to increase the FY 21 reserve in both the open space and the affordable housing category. Article 9. Article 9 is to return unused funds from completed projects. This is to transfer $1,106.49 to the Community Preservation Undesignated Fund from the Oakdale Playground Special Spring 2015 Town Meeting article and from the Lukey Playground Special 2017 Town Meeting article, and from the Girls Softball Special Spring 2020 Town Meeting article. These projects have been completed and are closed. Unexpended funds must be returned to community preservation. Article 12. Article 12 is the Harbor Services Permit Receipts Reserved for Appropriation Account for the Onset Pier floating docks. This is to transfer the sum of $58,750 from the Harbor Services Permits Receipts Reserved for Appropriation Account and transfer it to the Harbor Master's Maintenance and Improvement Account. The funding request is for the principal and interest payment of a bond that was used to replace the Onset Pier floating dock system. An initial expenditure of $250,000 was approved at the October 18, 2019 annual meeting to fund the engineering. This has no impact on the tax rate, as all funding comes from the fees collected by the Harbor Master. Article 13, Harbor Services Permit Receipts Reserved for Appropriations Account, Patrol Boat Outboard Motors. This is to transfer the sum of $23,000 from the Harbor Services Permits Receipts Reserved for Appropriations Account and transfer it to the Harbor Master's Maintenance and Improvements Account. This is the second payment of 3 payments. Article 14. Article 14 is the Harbor Services Permit Receipts Reserved for Appropriation Account, Training and Officer Safety Equipment. This is to transfer the sum of $14,000 from the Harbor Services Permits Receipts Reserved for Appropriation Account and transfer it to the Harbor Master's Maintenance and Improvements Account. This funding is going to cover costs associated with the changes in the required police academy training, merchant mariners training, and various marine and department training. In addition, funding will cover cost of all officer safety equipment requirements for the described training and job function. These funds will be used for federally required training and equipment. So, not having heard any holds, I now will accept a motion to vote on the consent agenda. Mr. Pigeon.
Madam Moderator, I move that the town approve Articles 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 13, 14 as printed in the warrant.
I have a motion and I have a second. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It is unanimous. Madam Clerk? 16. Article 16. To those who might be new to town meeting, we are required to take these articles by lottery. That's under our charter. This is a petition article. The petitioner would like to come to the microphone. This is an amendment to current procedure. Mr. Dunlop? You want to come to the microphone, please?
Hi, Peter Dunlop, Precinct 1.
Please come to the microphone.
Excuse me?
Please come to the microphone.
They carried one over. Hi,
Oh, okay. Hit it.
not working? Is it working now?
It is. May I have your motion?
This motion's simple. It's to allow the town boards and councils to bring warrants directly to the people at town meeting. These boards, committees, trusts, councils, and commissions.
Can I stop you right there? You need probably if you read your motion that's up on the screen, because we need to move that the town vote.
So you want me to read that?
Yes? In order to have a legitimate motion, yes, that has to be your motion.
Oh, okay. I move that the town of Wareham vote that the articles for spring or fall town meetings submitted by the Board of Selectmen by a majority of a full membership of any elected or appointed multiple body member member body as provided for in the Town of Wareham Charter or the town bylaws shall be included in the warrant by the Board of Selectmen and to petition the legislature to take action on this approval. This will be in addition to the article submission process provided under Mass General Law, Chapter 39, Section 10.
I have a motion and a second to speak to the article. Mr. Dunlop.
Thank you. This motion's simple. It's to allow the town boards and committees to bring warrants directly to the people at town meeting. These boards, committees, trusts, councils, and commissions, some elected by you, are all volunteers. They hold meetings open to the public, seek opinions from other concerned townspeople, as well as getting expert views. They seek advice from town council, and when advised if finances are involved, they'll go to the town administrator and the finance committee prior to submitting the petition. And all of this can be vetoed by 3. I ask that we return to the previous method. A warrant can come to town meeting in one of 3 ways: by a citizen's petition of 10 registered voters, by the Board of Selectmen, and by a majority vote of any member body. Thank you. And thank you, moderator, for the handbook on how to prepare a warrant.
Thank you. Do I have a second? I have a second. To speak to the article, Board of Selectmen?
Thank you.
The Board of Selectmen vote, I'm sorry. Yep.
Okay, we voted 2-3-0.
You need to turn your microphone on.
Can you hear me? 2-3-0.
Thank you. Could I have the vote recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Yes, the Finance Committee voted to approve this by a vote of 5-1-0.
Thank you. To speak to the article, gentleman on my right. Yes.
No, it's Sandy, not Joe.
Oh, sorry. Mr. Slavin, I apologize. Like I said, you're in the dark over there, and with a mask, I'm sorry. Please state your name.
You broke the microphone, huh?
If you would like, that would be great.
Thank you. All right,
You got to get pretty close in.
pretty close. Better? Sandy Slavin, Precinct 3. For the record, I am the treasurer of CPC, and I just wanted to give this body a little history as to the frustration we've had about getting our warrants, our articles on the town meeting floor. By state law, CPA articles must be submitted to the body, and the selectmen, majority of them, have refused to put several articles on, and I'd like to have the history. In fall 2015, 6 units were being requested for Agawam housing for $504,000. It failed to make it to the warrant because the majority of the selectmen said it's too expensive. In fall 16, we requested 4 articles for four units for $453,000. Again, too expensive. In spring 18, a CPA request for $558,000 for 4 units, failed to come to town meeting, too expensive. In fall 2018, we submitted an article, we CPC submitted our article for $930,000 for 6 units, and a citizen submitted the article for the same amount. Then what happened is that Selectmen said, well, since the citizen put an article in, we don't have to put the
30
article.
seconds.
Thank you. It will make the warrant too big if we put both articles on there. Now, again, 2018 it failed, but in 2019, we got approval for $650,000 for 4 units. My question is, if this article passes, will the Selectmen be able to prevent any article submitted by a committee from coming to the town meeting floor?
Time. If anyone cares to answer the question? No?
So we don't know if this will work. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Titlebaum?
Yeah, to the question of whether this will work, you've got 2 procedural issues with this article. First off, when we've done charter changes, we've always had the language that people sought to be approved in here. That is missing. Secondly, you don't have the magic words at the end of it that say, or to take any other action relative thereto. So essentially, even if you pass this, you're going to send an article up to the state legislature that doesn't have the language, and they're not going to be enabled to act upon it because you haven't authorized them to take any other action relative thereto. So the article is flawed right out of the gate. And again, I'd remind everybody in June what the process was through the Charter Review Committee, and group rather, when they gave you the exact language in bold and said, this is what gets inserted in here. These are called home rule petitions when we submit things to the legislature. If the legislature doesn't write the language for us, the legislature doesn't want to step into our shoes and try to divine what it is that we want. So you've got a problem right out of the gate there. Secondly, to the previous speaker's point about keeping articles off, and also to the explanation here, the explanation is erroneous. We did in fact keep articles off prior to the charter change in 2019 that simply took out the language that said the Board of Selectmen shall, quote, receive articles. Some of
30
us thought
seconds.
that meant, and town council is one of them along with myself, that you filed them with the Board of Selectmen. Other people thought, well, that means you're supposed to put them all on. We've kept certain articles off. We kept the one off for the Housing Authority because we didn't think it made sense. I would ask the body, has anything been done on that, even after we relented and let it go back on? It just, you can't build 4 units for $640,000 now. So we've also kept off repair to the smokestack at British Landing.
Time.
Can I just finish my one point?
I'll give you a few seconds more.
Okay. Yeah, for the smokestack, they wanted $100,000. We kept it off because we found out it wasn't even historic, that changes had been made to it. So we exercise this very rarely. We do it to try to keep focus on the budget and to try to avoid conflicts between groups, committees, boards, and the town administrator. So I would ask you to vote this down. It's not going to go anywhere when it goes up to Beacon Hill anyway.
Thank you. Gentleman on my left, are you standing to speak?
I am, and thank you for, again, misrepresenting a woman. My name is Holly Van Nest, and I live in Onset, Precinct 2, and I was part of the group that wrote this article, and I wanted to make a couple points. One of the things that people have talked about is that the Select Board needs to be the gatekeeper of what goes on the warrant. And we are asking the Select Board to give up a little tiny bit of control of that. Given a lot of things that have happened in this town over the last couple years, and the vitriol that I see people putting out all over the place, I think that's not too much to ask as a way of trying to calm some of that, to share in what everybody wants, which is to improve the town of Wareham. Some people have said that it's the select board's responsibility to look at the greater Wareham and the multiple member bodies to look at focused topics. I don't think those are mutually exclusive. I think there are times when the select board does focus in on
30 seconds.
on single topics, maybe to the greater good, maybe not, and vice versa. It is not it's not mutually assured that the multiple member bodies will not be able to look at the greater good. And in terms of what the charter said or did not say prior to whatever date, we're looking at the future, not the past. We want things to move forward, and part of that is to share in making this a better town. Thank you.
Thank you. On my right?
Can you hear me? Oh, good, okay. Brenda Ekstrom, Precinct 2.
Please state your name.
Brenda Ekstrom, Precinct 2. And I would like to amend the article by adding at the end, or to take any relative action thereto.
Unfortunately, Mrs. Ekstrom, because this is a petition article going to the legislature, I will not allow it. It wasn't in the original.
Madam
Let it go. All right, it doesn't matter one way or the other.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I will make that motion to...
Point of order, Madam Moderator.
State your point.
During the June town meeting, you required up or down votes on the articles as presented. This was after the Charter Review Committee and then the successor Charter Review Group went over these things for like a year and a half. So I don't know why we're changing how we're treating amendments to what is effectively our Constitution.
Just a moment, just a moment. Just a moment. Mrs. Ekstrom, Mr. Titlebaum was correct that when we did the prior articles at our last town meeting, I did not allow amendments to these types of articles, so I am not going to allow the amendment.
Point of order?
Point of order, Madam Moderator. If I may, in our charter, it says that citizens' articles are to be in no particular order. I mean, no particular format.
Mrs. Ekstrom, you made your point about trying to add an amendment, and I am going to say no to the amendment. Please take a seat.
Point of order?
Town council has said that he will clarify.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I don't know if I'll clarify, but I'll add anyway. The language, or take any other action relative thereto, is not necessary for a petition to go to the legislature. So adding those words, in my opinion anyway, makes no difference whatever as to whether the legislature could, if this were to pass, as to whether the legislature could take up the proposal or not. So I think, in my opinion anyway, the amendment would be unnecessary, but I'm indifferent as to whether it's allowed or not.
Given town council's explanation, then I would say it's not needed, so I won't accept it. Gentleman on my left.
I guess question and point of order. Question being that per Mr. Bowen's, per Attorney Bowen's clarification, I think that Mr. Teitelbaum's point that, sure, this might get to the legislature, but when it gets there, they might only be able to take it as is and not be able to modify it to take any other action relative thereto. Do I understand that correctly, Mr. Bowen?
I think that's what he said, that it would not make any difference if you want to.
Is this right?
Mm-hmm.
Madam Moderator, through the previous speaker, what you're dealing with here is not a legal question, but a policy question. The policy question is whether you want this to go to the legislature or not. When it gets to the legislature will decide what it wishes to do with the language, whether it looks at the language and says there's not enough detail for us to act on it, or the legislature could decide that it's going to flesh it out on its own. That's a political question for the legislature to decide. It's not a legal question. Thank you.
So into my point of order, Madam Moderator, I was going to actually suggest the same amendment, and I still would like to, and you mentioned that the last town meeting you stopped that, but according to your own rules, I believe that rule ended with that town meeting, correct?
It is.
Thank you.
You're correct.
I'd like to insert that amendment if that's possible.
No, because at the last town meeting, my policy, as I stated, would be that I would not allow amendments to these type of
But I
warrant
thought,
articles.
when you said you were correct,
No, I
I
will
thought...
not accept amendments to this article.
Okay, but when you said you were correct, I thought you meant you were correct in that the last town meeting ended, and so did that rule.
And the rule applies to this meeting.
Okay. All right.
Am I right? Do you wish to,
I wish to speak to the original article.
can you state your name, please?
Lisa Morales Onset. I have in my hand a document that I received in the Selectmen's office last week, dated 2020, authored by Town Moderator Claire L.
Can you
Smith.
talk a little louder, please?
Authored by Claire L. Smith. And in this, it has a Town of Wareham policy statement, submission of warrant articles, and the title of this document is Guide to Warrant Articles and Motions for Petitioned Articles. And this was submitted on March 15, 1988, and approved by the Board of Selectmen. It reads in part, all articles submitted by any multiple member body are at the request of that body. All requests must be submitted to the Board of Selectmen's office only after an official majority vote of the body making that request. All requests must be accompanied by a certificate from the clerk of that multiple member body. I support this amendment because we have to have faith in these bodies that we are electing and appointing, that they have done their due diligence, they have held a vote, that their clerk is certifying that they have held that vote, and the Board of Selectmen should not have the power to withhold those from this voting body. Therefore, I ask that we approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Slavin?
Just for reference, over the last 12, 13 years I've been involved with the town, there are warrant articles that go either to the AG's office or they go to the Senate and the House. Now, the Senate and the House has their own set of lawyers, and it's not unusual for them to take an article, look at it, and if there's something they don't consider major, they'll do it on their own. So if this goes through and does get passed, from my prior experience anyways, is there's a possibility that they would ignore the particular wording and add it themselves. It's not unusual. And I also, just so you know, I support this article simply because the Finance Committee is the committee that tells you, who are basically the voters, to make a decision if an article is financially feasible or not. It's not the Selectmen's job, it's the Finance Committee's. I don't believe we should be the gatekeeper and prevent this town body to vote on articles. Thank you.
Mr. Muniz?
I'm one of the two selectmen who voted in favor of this article. I have no problems with committees by majority putting articles onto the warrant, and the light's in my eyes, so that's why I'm bending down. And, you know, we still get to vote whether we support it or not, as does the Finance Committee, so I'm in favor of this, and I would urge that you vote in favor of it. Thank you.
Gentleman on my right, are you standing to speak?
Thomas Bickey, Precinct 3. I rise in opposition to this article. I think this body needs to recognize that with the more than a dozen different bodies and commissions in this town, if every one of them came to town meeting with 4 or 5 articles, we'd have a 200-article warrant. And if you think spending 1 or 2 nights here for town meeting, imagine a warrant with 200 articles on it. We'll be here for 2 weeks. So I would recommend that we give some discretion to the Board of Selectmen to be the gatekeepers and the editors to make sure that our town meeting ends up in a day or two and not in 2 weeks or so. So I ask that you vote this article down. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else standing, I will now call for vote. This calls for a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. The article passes by a majority. Article 17. Article 17 is a petition article. Mrs. Ekstrom? Can I have your motion, please?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I move that the town vote to petition the I'm sorry? Okay. I move that the town vote to petition the legislature to amend Chapter 38 of the Acts of 2018, an act relative to a Wareham Redevelopment Authority as follows. By striking out Section 3B and inserting in place thereof the following.
Hang on one second. Matt, do you want to put her motion up that she gave you? I believe that's going to be her main motion.
Yes, thank you. By striking out Section 3B.
Yeah, Mrs. Ekstrom, again, I could suggest you, if you don't want to read the whole thing, your motion could be as printed on the screen. I move that the town vote as printed on the screen, and then explain.
So moved.
And then explain what the difference is.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. So I move that we, the proposed warrant, that we vote to approve the article as written on the screen, as printed on the screen.
I have a motion and a second to speak to your article.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. The Wareham Redevelopment Authority presently consists of 5 members. Only one is a citizen at large. The other 4 are town employees, whether special or otherwise. 2 are selectmen, 1 is the town administrator, and 1 is the director of planning and development. This article, by electing 3 members, I believe will allow for a more robust and more representative board reflecting the values, ideals, and visions of the residents of Wareham, and not just those who are self-appointed and employees under the direct or indirect influence of the Board of Selectmen. The amendments on the article, as shown on the screen, Chapter 121, I initially had it, you'll see in your book, I initially had it as 7 members. 121B of the general laws says it shall be 5 members. Now, it's a special act of the legislature. We could go to 7, but essentially what this is doing is I'm trying to get our redevelopment authority to be what other redevelopment authorities are supposed to be. They are not supposed to be part of the town. Most of them are 501c3s, and they're not led by the selectmen. And even though the Wareham Redevelopment Authority, most recently the things that the selectmen have voted for the town, like NODOS, or the redevelopment authority like Littleton Drive, to wipe out trees to put in condos, those are things that I think that a lot of the people in town weren't really in favor of, as evident by the vote. So I would just like to be able to empower the people of this town to elect people that would share their interests, that we could give a vision, the nominees could give a vision, and people could hold them accountable, rather than the way it is right now. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Which one is it? 17, right? Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, we voted 1-4-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Vote of the Finance Committee was 2-4-0.
Thank
We
you.
do not recommend the article.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said, Mr. Titlebaum?
Yeah, I'm the chairman of the Redevelopment Authority. This was put into law back in 2018. The Selectmen came to this body with the proposal to set up the Redevelopment Authority to replace the CETA Board. The CETA Board had been established in 2004 for a variety of reasons, many of which were not their fault. They were unable to get basic tasks done, like come up with an urban renewal plan, come up with even a redevelopment strategy, get slum and blight studies done. They had difficulties. I know some of the people who are on there. They're all good people. And it wasn't for lack of trying, but for whatever reason, they weren't advancing the ball when it came to doing things like creating more affordable housing, looking at a place like Wareham Village, which we all know is a bit run down and needs some work. So we went to the state, and they approved this. Now, on your way in here, you could have picked up a handout. This goes through some of the things that we've accomplished in the time that we've been a redevelopment authority. The signature accomplishment, I would say, is Littleton Drive, which added 44 units of senior housing. It didn't cost the town a dime because we took land that had been sitting there since 1980 and got this done. We got this through a comprehensive permit process.
30 seconds.
Pardon me?
30 seconds.
Okay. You know, we seem to be focusing tonight a lot on the who rather than the what. You know, we managed to get 93 units of affordable housing built. We've got grants for an urban renewal plan, so we don't have to pay for that. We're managing to get things done. So I would ask for you to look at the accomplishments as laid out in the handout that was given to you. And you know, are we more worried about who does it or what the result is? I would urge you to vote this down. Thank you.
On my right?
Richard Swenson, Precinct 3. I was the citizen at-large member of the WRA for 3 years. I resigned last month. And I'm supporting this article for 2 reasons. One, the 4 other members of our WRA have other jobs, and the amount of resources they can apply to WRA functions is very limited. Our town administrator has tons on his plate. Our director of planning has tons on his plate. For the last 2 years, the chairman of the Board of Selectmen has been on the WRA, and they have tons on their plate. The WRA has a lot of work to do, and we need more people and more cycles to get that work done. This would allow that to happen. Second of all, and more importantly, there's a lot of divisiveness and mistrust in our town right now toward our government. To that end, we need to listen to our citizens at a much higher level. Putting 5 citizens on this board will allow that to happen. Please don't misunderstand me when I say this, because the members of the WRA, their hearts are good. But because of the distrust there is right now, there's a rezoning article for Wareham Village, which is a good article, and it has been held back from 3 town meetings because it is not believed it will pass because of the mistrust, in my opinion. We have a lot of work to
calling
do.
out, please.
We need citizens to get on board, and we need to get work going. So I support this article.
Thank you. Mr. Slavin?
I apologize if I'm a little stiff, whatever. I just had surgery a couple of days ago, but I'm here anyways. The WRA basically contracted Serpent to do some work, and they basically did this work based on what's best economically. WRA, or any redevelopment authority, looks at not just the economic benefit, but benefit to the community overall, which you can't always measure in dollars. It is very unusual not to have a setup with an executive director and then 4 or 5 people who all have experience in redevelopment, banking management, just development in general. I didn't support this article only because of the way it was put together with members. I made a comment which wasn't appreciated, saying that it's a popularity contest when you have voting. I mean, the five of us here, technically, we have some skills, but at the end of the day, if you like us, you vote for us. If you don't, you don't. So in this particular case here, I'd kind of like to see this come back again and rewritten so it has a proper redevelopment authority. And even though because nothing's really going to happen until next spring anyways, but I'd normally ask for a further study, but I don't want to do it that way. I'd rather have the group come back with a proper article with an executive director. I've never seen a redevelopment authority set up this way before. And as chairman of the Serpent Commission, I get involved with the RESC, which is 27 communities in Massachusetts. And these are all redevelopment authorities involved there. So I do have experience in how it works. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman on my right.
Madam Secretary, Dan Butler, Precinct 1. I rise to oppose the article. Madam Secretary, I am the current citizen at large on the WRA, and admittedly I have nowhere near the length of tenure or experience as Mr. Swenson, who spoke earlier. I've only been on the WRA for 6 weeks, and I have to say I realized very quickly when I saw Article 17 after just a week or two on the WRA that I had to figure out quickly if I thought that was a better way to do business, or if the current WRA was a better way to proceed with this very important business of the town. And so I did my best to figure that out as fast as I could. And I originally focused on the fact that the original article would have expanded the size to 7, and I thought 7 was too big. I felt that 5 was just right. And actually, just in the 6 weeks I've been with the WRA, I may have come in with low expectations, but I've been pleasantly surprised. I've been surprised with what they've accomplished. I've been surprised with the makeup of the WRA. I believe the 2 elected members who serve on the WRA are well-meaning and bring very important information, excellent perspective to the deliberations of the WRA. 2 key members, voting members of the WRA currently are our town administrator and our director of planning, both of whom we task to do this very important work for the town. And I have seen them do very good work. The WRA, I believe, is well led by its chairman. And I may come back in 6 months and tell you that I'm wrong.
Time.
But I do not support this article today. I believe the WRA needs more time to continue its important work and should be structured as it is currently.
Thank you. Mr. Unused?
Yeah, I rise in support of this article. No, my mic's on. Hello? Can you hear me on now?
Yes.
Here we go, huh? I rise in support of this article. I think everybody who's on the authority does a good job. I think they are stretched. I know if I go to meetings, I can't participate in a deliberation because I become a 3rd select board member. So for me, that's a problem to have input and discussion with the board members. That's a drawback for me. I think having input is important, and I should not be allowed to do that because I'm a select board member. So it's not perfect. Everybody's trying to do a good job. I'm going to support this, and I hope you do also. Thank you.
Mr. Tropiano?
Hi. Can you hear me, everybody? Okay. No? Hello? Hello? Test 1, 2. There we go. All right, so I want to take you back in time a little ways. I've been around here too long, I think. All right, so if we go back before Cedar, we had a thing called the EDIC. Some of you probably remember it. Some of you around. Gus Lankopoulos was the director. And it was completely separated from the town in general. It cost us a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars to run. They used to, trade land, do various odd things. I don't know that they accomplished a lot between you and I, okay? But the fact of the matter is that it cost a lot of money. So if you set up an EDIC and you set it up with a director and all these different people down the road, and there were secretaries and there were all kinds of folks, which cost lots of money, it's going to cost a lot of money. We changed it back in 2002, 2003, I was on the board, and the idea was to make it into a cedar, because cedar we thought would cost us less money to operate and so on and so forth. Well, we did it, and not to the fault of anybody. It really didn't work, because all they ended up doing was managing the grant. And, you know, we really don't need anybody to manage the grant. It's just sort of a waste of time.
30 seconds.
But to sort of put it all in perspectives, the group, the way that we have it now, the WRA, it's done a lot so far, and it hasn't cost us a nickel, not a dime. And to me, that's important. The cost is really the thing. And not only that, but they all care about what's going on in the town, every single one of them. And as far as selectmen go, if you don't like them, you just vote them out. You get some new ones. That's how it works.
Time.
All right, thank you.
On my right?
Madam Moderator, Bob Howell, 14 Corridge Drive, Chairman of the Wareham Housing Authority, former legislative director of the Mass Narrow Associations, that's the Massachusetts chapter of the National Housing and Redevelopment Officials. Madam Moderator, this amendment best reflects the original intention of the state legislature, which has served the Commonwealth for many, many years, longer than all of you go back. I go back to the days of Ed Logue at the Boston Redevelopment Authority. There's 250 housing and redevelopment authorities in this state. All of them are creatures of the Commonwealth by virtue of Chapter 121B. Section 3 created housing authorities. Section 4 created redevelopment authorities. Section 5 talks about the makeup of 5 members elected and 1 appointed. This best reflects that. And having 2 non-elected or appointed members to serve best reflects the intent of the legislature. This goes back again to the way it should be. The only question I have, and it's probably somewhere else in Chapter 38, when you amended the general laws in 2018, in the original general laws,
30 seconds.
it says at the end, membership of a housing and redevelopment authority shall be restricted to members of the city or town. So I'm presuming somewhere in the legislature, if you could ask town, in this Chapter 38, it says that membership on this board, those 4 elected members, are restricted to being citizens of the town. And second of all, it's all right that the other 2 appointed aren't. So I urge you to vote this in. It keeps independent housing and the redevelopment authorities, which was the original intent. They're separate corporate body politics intended to be free from the influence of the Board of Selectmen.
Time, Mr. Paulides. On my right?
Lisa Morales Onset. I rise in support of this article. I think I was going about the same place as Mr. Paulides. However, we pay our town administrator and our town planner for their time as the town administrator and the town planner. And they are taking their time away from that to work with the redevelopment authority. Neither of those individuals lives in the town of Wareham. So the Wareham Redevelopment Authority should be a creature of and a function of citizens of the town of Wareham. I'd also like to call the question. Thank you.
I don't accept a calling for the question by a speaker that has just spoken.
Madam Moderator?
You have a point?
Yes, if I may speak, forgive me for not standing. That light in my eyes is very uncomfortable. I will just caution you to think and concern that this is a group that has ongoing negotiations, and you are effectively wiping them all out and having all new people. And through you, Madam Moderator, to the chairman, I would like to ask the chairman of the redevelopment, what negotiations are currently ongoing because they certainly will have an impact if they change the concept of the committee.
Well, we're still working with the developer of Littleton Drive. We are still, I don't know if you would call it negotiations, but to the extent that people think we need to go back to the people more, we've engaged with Tricia Wirtz to do outreach, to find out things. She's assisting us with Wareham Village. I do see that Mr. Buckland has risen, and so he actually would be maybe better suited to answer that question. He's the clerk of the Redevelopment Authority.
Mr. Buckland, do you care to answer that question?
Yes, I'll answer the question. We are negotiating with the Bay Point Country Club for the sale of the Cedar property at the 7.2 acres at 30% over the appraised value of the property. We are negotiating with the Littleton Drive redeveloper, the master developer at the Tremont Nail Factory, negotiating with him for that firm. And by the way, people will have a chance to meet the developer next week. We are also negotiating with the user, the renter of the Fort Recovery Road property. We are also helping out additional developers in making their projects, advancing their projects in town. One example is the old train station on Merchants Way. The idea for a grant for redoing that was Mary Bruce when she was the selectman and a member of the WRA. We now have a proposal for a donut shop and coffee shop there. The rezoning of the Tremont Nail Factory, which took the legal prowess of a selectman, resulted in $250,000 in private money invested in the
30
property,
seconds.
and a developer proposing to renovate the historic buildings. There's one other one of importance is the submission and approval of an opportunity zone over the downtown. The result of that was Danny Warren, who has purchased the Greer lumber site and has a great project that getting permitted now, and the first project in the new era of downtown being supported by the WRA and the work that we're doing there.
Thank you, Mr. Buckland. Is that Mrs. Ekstrom again?
It is.
Unfortunately, you've used all of your 5 minutes, Mrs. Ekstrom.
I thought I had like 30 seconds left.
Michelle, do you have any time left? According to the town clerk, you used all of your time.
Could I ask the body for more time, please?
You had your 5 minutes. You had your 5 minutes. I'm going to say no. I think we've spent a lot of time on this. We've heard some good information, and I think we're getting close to be able to take a vote on this.
Madam Moderator, but you've also heard a lot of lies. None of those properties are in the hands of the WRA. They're all in the town of Wareham's hands. So this is what's happening, is you're mixing selectmen with the WRA.
Mrs. Ekstrom, please take a seat. You've had your 5 minutes. Mrs. Whiteside?
Yes, I would caution you to, again, understand that we are in the middle of several negotiations, and that passing this article will put an end to that. I would also inform you that one of the members of the signatories of this petition applied to be on the WRA and was passed over, and so it's interesting that she has an interest in redesigning something that is working really well.
Thank you. Is it someone standing on my left that I've missed? Yes. On my left?
Patty Neal, Onset, and my disclaimer, I work for the town administrator. But I do have a question. Being the board is made up the way it is now, they hear more details on this, and the town is the one that has to work with any developers and such as far as the properties go. If this were a separate entity, 501c, what type of powers per se would they have to negotiate on the town's behalf to get some of these things done? It was my understanding when we did this in 2018 that there wasn't anything happening because they didn't have the powers to technically negotiate or to really work with entities because it is town property. And then a lot of these things, like the property decision that was going on over in Indian Mountain Beach area, the casino or whatever it was, something that big, when it goes through, it does come to town meeting and democracy works. That, to me, is the whole point. People are always complaining that boards and stuff don't do anything, but this board is doing something. And I just want to know if a 501c would have the same abilities as this board as it's set up now.
Thank you. To answer the question, if anyone cares to. Mr. Slavin?
Not sure if I'm going to answer this right or not, but I believe most of the properties, what happens with WRA, town meeting, as we know, is turn those properties over to them, and that's how they get control to sell them, develop them, and use the money, and then reinvest again. So that's the answer to that, is the properties that they have been turned over to them through town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. I see one more person standing on my right. I will allow that last speaker, but I think we've spent a great deal of time on this, and we've really heard, I think, from both sides. So after the speaker, I will call for the vote. On my right?
Diane Kenny, Precinct 6. Madam Moderator, I'm confused why we are being told that all these negotiations would never happen. We're not dissolving the WRA. There's no reason why negotiations wouldn't be able to continue with a different board. People come and go from the board all the time, and if they were involved in the negotiations don't just come to an end. So I'd like to guarantee that all those negotiations would come to an end.
Thank you. Okay, I think we spent a lot of time on this, and we have other business that we need to do, so I am now going to call for the vote. The vote is on the motion, which is on the screen. It does require a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. The motion is lost. I see more people standing, 7 people standing. I will go back and take a count. Will the tellers please come forward? Again, the motion is as is presented on the screen. We're in the middle of a vote. We're voting on the motion to approve as is on the screen. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Will the tellers please take a count? In the front?
16.
To my right? 13. In the middle?
46.
46, 46. On my left.
31.
31. All those opposed, please raise your cards. Did we get everybody? All right. All right, hold on. Hold on. Let's start over. Everyone in favor of the motion as presented on the screen, please raise your hands. Will the tellers please retake the count?
Okay, here we go.
Are the tellers finished counting? Okay. On my right. In the front.
15, 15.
In the middle.
43.
And on my left.
31.
All those opposed to the motion on the screen, please raise your hands.
Yes.
Have the tellers finished counting? In the front.
18, 18.
18. On my right. In the middle.
38.
And on my left.
12.
The vote is 104 in the affirmative and 74 in the negative. The motion passes. Ladies and gentlemen, passes by a majority. Article 10. Article 10, to speak to the article?
Article 10.
Article 10, Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. So I think the motion be, I move that the town vote to approve as printed in the warrant. And this is a project to rehabilitate the Swiss Beach Playground. The existing 30-year-old equipment was unsafe for children, was removed. The project will include ADA-compliant play equipment and surfacing, a pickleball court, retopping basketball court, new backboards and rims. The Swiss Beach Improvement Association supports this project. And Madam Moderator, do you know if Ms. Padalano's in the crowd tonight?
I believe she is. Mrs. Padalano, yes, she is.
She's, if you don't mind, the real driving force behind this is one of the Swiss Beach summer residents, Christy Padalano, and she's really the tremendous amount of work she's done. So if you'd like to say something, but honestly, everything that's been done, it's gone through her. She's done a fantastic job. So.
Thank you. Do I have a second? May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted 5-0-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Approved, 7-0-0.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on the article? Seeing no one standing, I will now call for a vote. Vote on Article 10 to approve the Joseph W. Conway Senior Swiss Beach Playground. Requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you, Christy. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Just so that you know, Mrs. Padalano, I believe, drove all the way down from New Hampshire to be here this evening, so she's very dedicated. We thank her. The next article, please. Article 2.
Motion for Article 2. We're lighting it up, have a little fun here, and spend some money.
This is, excuse me? Article 2 is the transfer of free cash.
I move that the town vote to transfer $900,000 from certified free cash as follows.
Wait a minute. Let's have Mr. Sullivan.
They'll read the motion, then I'll...
Okay, go ahead. Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
All right. Purpose, Plymouth County OPEB, amount $300,000, spending authority, town meeting. Plymouth County Retirement, $150,000 to the Plymouth County Retirement. Stabilization Fund, $150,000, town meeting. Collective bargaining reserves, $200,000, town administrator, Human Resources Department. Unemployment reserve, $100,000, town administrator, Human Resources Department. Total $900,000.
Do I have a second? Have a second. To speak to the article, Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. In two documents you have tonight, the first one is if you go to page 1 of the town administrator's handout, there's an explanation of how free cash is generated and what the proper uses are. I don't think I will bore you with reading through it. It's part of that. I think one of the things that you need to know is that there are 4 articles seeking to use free cash. This is one of them. Articles 1, 2, 3, and 20. And we currently have a certified free cash balance of $5,955,312. And if all those articles passed, we would have a balance of $3,597,815.01. And then the Finance Committee had done a nice job in their report of putting what the uses for the OPEB, stabilization, collective reserve, and the unemployment reserve are.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted 5-0-0 to support.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee voted in favor, 7-0-0.
Is there anything further to be said on Article 2? Seeing no one standing, I will call for the vote. You're voting on the transfer of free cash. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It's unanimous. 11. Article 11. May I have a motion on Article 11?
I
I move that the town approve this article as printed in the warrant.
I have a second. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted 4-0-1.
I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee voted 7-0-0 to recommend.
Thank you. To speak to the article? No one to speak to the article? Mr. Sullivan?
That's not my article. I believe it's from the Community Preservation Committee. But I can read out the explanation if you want. But there, all right.
To speak to the article?
Yes, Sandy Slavin, Precinct 3, Treasurer of CPC, strongly recommends supporting this particular payment. In the warrant, you can see that it's about a third of the cost of doing it. Anybody going to Wickett's Island recognizes that the stone pier that's been there a long time is extremely dangerous and hard to walk on and to tie up to. By providing this funding, we would have the Buzzards Bay Coalition complete the project and make it a very safe pier float for everybody to use Wickett's Island, not just drag their canoe up onto the beach, which is what they have to do now. So I support the article and recommend its passing. Thank you.
Thank you. On my left?
Kat Garofoli, Buzzards Bay Coalition, Onset Bay Center Director. Thank you for looking at this article and voting on its approval. Buzzards Bay Coalition is committed to providing high-quality recreation opportunities for the town of Wareham through the Onset Bay Center. We are asking this request through community preservation funds to help us in this final phase of restoration. This will ultimately help us provide better quality programs over to the island, but most importantly, as people can well imagine, the island is very well visited in the summer, and it's of the utmost priority to make sure that it is safe. And currently, it'll be really important for emergency personnel to get there safely, and that is not necessarily the easiest thing to happen right now. And so we're hoping that town meeting voters will look at this request favorably, as we are trying to just provide more opportunities for people to visit the island. Thank you.
Thank you. On my left?
Is it my turn? Yes?
Please state your name.
My name is Marsha Campbell, and I'm from Precinct 1. And I used to be at Wickett's Island all the time when I was a kid. But I think there's more important things to spend money on. Matter of fact, I had to get a ride to this meeting tonight because I can only walk, and I can't walk in the dark, and the town still hasn't put up lights on my street. And there's sidewalks that are broken. There's plenty of more important things than to cater to summer people yet again. I just thought we should throw that out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Moderator?
Mr. Pigeon?
I'd just like to make a statement that in the Finance Committee report appendices, there are some photographs of the dock, and it'll give you an idea just how that desperately needs upgrading, especially if they're considering any ADA people that may visit. Thank you.
Thank you. On my left?
Joan Kinneberg, Onset Precinct 3 and Chair of CPC. I just want to remind folks that this is the perfect project for CPA funds. Remember that there are certain things that can be paid for with CPA monies, and recreation and open space is certainly one of them. So this is a great project because it includes an opportunity for all ages, all income levels, and all kinds of interests to access Wickett's Island. It makes it safe, and it allows for maintenance of the island to keep it in pristine condition. So I recommend voting yes on this, this article.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said? Seeing no one standing, I will now call for a vote on Article 11 to approve the CPA funds. All those in, as it requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It passes by a majority. Article 1. Article 1, may I have a motion?
I move that we approve Article 1 as displayed on the screen. It's slightly different than what was written in the warrant. I can see the screen, yes. Do you want me to read it?
I can go through it. I think put a motion of as displayed on the screen because the warrant was just the notification.
So, if you would change your motion to as printed on the screen.
I make a motion that we approve Article 1 as written on the screen.
Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted 5-0-0.
I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee voted approval 7-0-0.
Thank you. To speak to the article, Mr. Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Page 2 of the administration handout has this list in there as well, just in case it was difficult to see. Just going down, the Wareham PD, that's the purchase and equip firearms and electronic control weapons. Electronic control weapons is the non-specific name for tasers. The next item is for the final phase of the radio equipment upgrade, which would give 5 nodes, which are receiving and transmitting data. They are dual mode to use for EMS and the PD. So that is what keeps our staff communicating in the field. The next one is to purchase and equip 1 unmarked vehicle. I'm not going to tell you the make of the vehicle, but the chief assures me it's not a Miami Vice Ferrari. So, the very important was the next one, the high school. It's a fire suppression system. This one would be upgraded to ADA accessible standards. Also, as well, has the voice module on it. So it's actually going to say and give directions. The next one is to purchase and equip 3 buses. Then the next one is purchase and equip 2 one-ton body trucks and plows. One of these is replacing a 1996 that was scrapped, and the other one, we've got a 2005 that the pistons on the dump body have begun pushing through. These are our everyday work trucks from whether it's in the field or snow and ice time. Town Hall Auditorium ceiling repair and paint. If you remember Town Hall, the slate roof, the slate was falling, so that needed to be repaired. When the slate fell from that portion, it was actually going into the rubber roof portion over the auditorium, which in turn cut the rubber roof, which caused leaks. We replaced the rubber roof, and now this is to fix the ceiling. If you've gone in there, probably if you voted or other activities, you've seen the decay. So this is going to finally get that up to snuff, the ceiling. MS4 compliance, and MS4, I always say it incorrectly, but it's the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. That is basically all the catch basins, everything we have throughout the community. We've got 3,300 of them throughout the town. Those need monitoring. That's required by our NIPD's permit, so we need to make sure we keep up with that and also start repairing and replacing. So that's to help with those and the monitoring. The Onset Pier Survey, the Onset Pier is already, this was approved to do the survey in another town meeting with $250,000 from community preservation, and the town was to fund the rest of it, so that's what we're doing here, the $188,000 to fund the rest of it. EMS, that is to do the, basically to purchase through a capital lease, a new ambulance. We do that every 3 years. With the timing, with the way things are, actually, if we purchased an ambulance today, we probably would not get it for close to a year. So that's why it's important to continue with that. So we're really going for the first payment of that 3-year capital lease. The next one is to purchase and equip 2 cruisers. We already have the funding in the capital line for the Wareham PD, so we're just choosing the authorization to purchase those vehicles. And then the last one is the new parking kiosk, 11 units for $110,000. That's from the onset parking. We started with kiosk units in 2013, so we're looking to start replacing those, and we experienced a lot of issues with the current ones this summer, and it's time to get new ones.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 1? Seeing no one standing, I will call for a vote. Because there is a purchase involved, this does require a 2/3 vote. I will try for unanimous. All those in favor of Article 1, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It is unanimous. Article 19. Article 19 is a petition article. Ms. Sandgate. May I have your motion?
Madam Moderator?
Mrs. Sandgate, this is a petition article.
Okay.
Ms. Sandgate?
I move the town vote favorable action to amend town's general bylaws by adding sections 5 and 6 to Division 1, Article 2, as written in the warrant.
Do I have a second? I have a second. Can I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Yeah, the Board of Selectmen voted 1-4-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee 150, recommended not to approve.
Mrs. Sandgate, to speak to your article?
Yes, please. Good evening, Wareham, and thank you, Madam Moderator, for allowing me to speak on Article 19. This article has 2 components, one being Zoom or similar remote participation in public meetings and hearings. The other making it so town boards do not silence those who wish to speak to them about public concerns. In regards to the Zoom portion, remote access is equal access to all. Public hearings, they're being held within our community, and some citizens can't get to them. They can't get to it for various reasons, disability, work hours, some people don't drive or they can't drive at night. The GATRA buses don't generally operate the times that these meetings are taking place. With that being said, Wareham has a very large elderly and disabled population. We also have a large population of snowbirds. That population alone is being disenfranchised each and every time a meeting takes place without remote hybrid participation. Wareham, we've already purchased the technology to make Article 19 feasible. We've been using it throughout the whole COVID pandemic. The equipment exists in the various rooms where these meetings are being broadcast now. A yes vote in support of Article 19 would codify this in the bylaw to expand and guarantee participation for all the time. A yes vote on Article 19 would ensure that everyday working families don't have to pick and choose between participating in a weekly board meeting or doing homework with their child. A yes vote would ensure the elderly who cannot drive at night or aren't able to drive at night that they can participate, as well as the snowbirds. Through my research, I found that many legislative bodies throughout Massachusetts, They're advocating for the continuance of hybrid remote meetings beyond the scope of the governor's COVID deadline of 2022. The Baker administration, they're actually advocating for communities to continue because they realize that this only expands government and participation within the communities. Now, for the second part of Article 19, which speaks about the Select Board not being able to silence members of the community. You may or may not know that there have been certain situations in which members of the community have been silenced and have not been allowed to speak during citizens' participations on any topic, myself included. If a citizen desires to speak during public comment, then they should be allowed to say what they need and they should be heard. The second portion of Article 19 merely states that if there is a citizen's participation, the Select Board cannot pick and choose who can speak during that time. Any resident should be able to speak, and if the resident has pending litigation or an appeal, or if they owe taxes, it should not preclude them from being a contributing citizen during citizens' participation. Those exercising their rights in Wareham are being penalized currently and cannot speak. Please vote yes on Article 19. It ensures and strengthens, in my opinion, that we will have transparency that we all feel we need, and open government is always good government. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 19? Mr. Pigeon?
Yes. I just want to remind us all, we are governed by the open meeting law. We have, a previous speaker said there was about a dozen committees. We've actually have some 33 appointed or elected committees. Now, the governor's order has allowed us to use either the Zoom or the hybrid meetings throughout the state. And that's been very convenient, as pointed out by the previous speaker, for many people. Unfortunately, April, that order expires. There is no changes to the open meeting law in the interim. We have to go back to open meetings. Public is invited to attend, but there is no permit for allowing the Zoom or hybrid meeting at this time. If this were to pass, we have approximately 2 to 3 months that would be able to do this because the Attorney General has to approve the whole thing, so it's about a 30-day delay. Also, the person who, or the entity that carries out the Zoom or hybrid is WCTV. They are a separate entity. They do not belong to us. We have a contractual relationship with them. Their ability to provide a third person for each of the meetings that may be going on any particular evening is, for each meeting that is Zoomed, an extra person down at the station has to control the chat rooms, permitting people in or out. That is an extra expense for them. Logistically, the equipment needed to provide a televised for all of those meetings. Now, I'm not suggesting they're all meeting in the same week, but it has a significant impact on them. However, we have to go back to the fact the legislature has not changed the open meeting law to allow for the Zoom or hybrid. Come April, we go back to the old way of doing things prior to the pandemic. That's rather disappointing, certainly for those who enjoy doing it. However, that is something we have to be concerned about, that what we do here this evening may be null in a matter of months.
Thank you, Mr. Pigeon. Is there someone standing on the right, or are you just leaving?
Nope, I'm waiting.
On my right?
Diane Kenny, Precinct 6.
You need to speak up and right into the microphone, please.
Diane Kenny, Precinct 6. As far as the Zoom go, there is no reason to include WCTV in Zoom meetings. Especially for the Finance Committee that has no public comment, or there's no reason for anybody to have to monitor anything. You literally just open up a laptop, get it positioned correctly, and start the Zoom. There's absolutely no reason to have a third party involved. The Selectmen's meetings definitely could be more complicated, but we have been doing them for a year and a half, and as far as I can tell, they've gone well. And again, I don't think there's a need for a third party to be involved in Zoom. As far as April goes, it may not go back. The governor may make a change and make this an option. My last point is, we've heard a couple of times that there's a lot of mistrust and divisiveness in town, not allowing people to speak because they've either discussed suing the town or are suing the town is one of the main reasons why there is that mistrust and divisiveness. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Moderator,
No,
point of
Mr.
order.
I'm sorry. Mr.
Previous
Pigeon,
Yes.
you had your time.
Madam
On my
Moderator,
left?
Point
Do you
of
have a
order.
point of order? What's your point?
The previous speaker implied that the Finance Committee doesn't permit participation. I'd like to suggest that if you had observed our meetings, we have a very open discussion. Unlike some of the other meetings, we're not conformed or we don't confine ourselves to certain rules. We have open discussion. No, we have not done Zoom. But that's probably because there's two committees meeting when we typically do, and the other meeting is televised live.
Thank you for your point. On my left?
Carl Schultz, Precinct 1. I'm a member of the Planning Board, and I'm not going to speak to the article specifically, but I can tell you that we have not successfully been able to get hybrid meetings to work. We try every single meeting, and I'll imagine there's people out here I know who try to get in. It doesn't work. It doesn't work yet. The technology's there, but we haven't been able to implement it. Thank you.
Thank you. On my right?
Leslie Edwards Davis, Precinct 1. I've done quite a bit of research on this issue. It's something I'm passionate about. I started a petition during the spring, and 190 plus residents signed it saying that they wanted hybrid access to continue. What you've seen across the Commonwealth is that more people are participating because they have this access. I participated in a Mass Municipal Association webinar on how to implement this in big and small towns, ones that have lots of resources and ones that don't, and there are options for all of those different configurations, whether your town has a lot of resources and staff or whether they don't. There are lots of towns who are having their committee chairs man or person their Zoom meetings, and it works. I do it at work. I'm the person who's in charge of letting people speak at work, and guess what? I'm able to do it. We may need to learn something that we're not comfortable with. We may need to ask questions and get training, but that is worth it to ensure that our population can participate in their democracy. We have 13+% disabled folks in our community. We have a large segment of seniors. Every time I talk about this issue, I get private messages. I can't drive at night. I have vision issues. I can't leave the house because I'm taking care of a parent or a small child, but I still want to participate, and we can make this happen for our residents.
Thank you. Mr. Ashley?
Madam Moderator, through you to the body, even if the open meeting laws were to be updated to allow for Zoom meetings, I think we have to consider whether it would be feasible in an open town meeting environment. In other words, in representative town meetings, they can vet people and get them all of that information that they need to go live on Zoom. In an open town meeting environment, it would be nearly impossible to get all of our registered voters feasibly the information that they would need to privately enter a Zoom meeting. Not to mention, we can't just open it to everyone because we have to be able to vet that the people who are voting are actually registered voters in town. So it's just something we might want to consider.
I just want to interject to Mr. Ashley's comments that even under the current emergency legislation, town meeting is not allowed to do Zoom. So we are not allowed by law to do that. I just want to clarify. On my left?
I'm Joyce Bakayaki, Precinct 5. I just want to follow up on something that Mr. Pigeon said about WCTV. As a chair of a committee in town, we are not only dependent but very grateful to WCTV for all of the work that they have done. It is because of them that we have been able to conduct successful meetings all through the pandemic by using Zoom. And although we are currently doing hybrid meetings, I'm very much in favor of that. But as a chair of a meeting, it would be impossible to conduct that meeting in person, as we are doing now, as many committees are doing, and to run that meeting on Zoom. It would be absolutely impossible to do that and do it well. And so we are definitely dependent on WCTV. They are stretching their resources, doing everything we ask them to do. They've never said no. And I just wanted to make that point. It's not as easy as they make it look. Thank you.
On my right.
Brenda Ekstrom, Precinct 2. The article says, any board which holds an adjudicatory hearing. My understanding that would be zoning, planning, conservation, Board of Health, Board of Selectmen, but only if they're doing a liquor license, if I'm not mistaken. So these are limited hearings. And as far as to one of the previous speakers who was concerned that the open meeting law doesn't require this, you're right. The open meeting law gives you the bare minimum of what they require. There's no reason why Wareham can't be ahead of the curve. There's no reason why Wareham can't open itself to all of its residents. I know people that go to Florida for a couple months out of the year. And I'm sure if any of us could afford it, and we went to Florida, we might not like it when we come back and there's a 40B being built beside us because we didn't see the notice because we weren't home. But if we could get the articles or get on the agendas, some of us get them sent to us every week, all the agendas. So we know what's going on. They would have the Zoom on it. And I love WCTV, but we also have to remember they have 3 channels, and it's anyone that pays for Fios or Verizon. Your money is paying for that. So they could definitely do a seminar and teach the clerks of the boards of the
30 seconds.
Adjudicatory boards, that they could teach them how to do it. So I urge favorable action on this.
Thank you. On my left?
Hi, Holly Haratunian, Onset. My question is for the Finance Department. It looks like you don't have any women, this woman would be more than happy to come to your meetings and do your Zoom. I can do that for the Planning Department. There's lots of young tech-savvy people who could easily show you how to do it. And here's an easy way to manage a meeting. The whole town doesn't want to come to a finance meeting, but if you send out, if 50 people RSVP to a meeting, you can send out invitations that day. It'll be 50 people. We just want some transparency. And we want more women on the board.
You're out of order.
Yes, ma'am.
Out of order.
Madam
On my right.
May I respond?
No. On my right.
Madam Moderator, just some questions through you to Attorney Bowen, if he wishes to answer. It was brought up that after April, this will all go away, the Zoom and whatnot. Correct me if I'm wrong, Attorney Bowen, but I mean, open meeting law. The town of Wareham already voted. The Board of Selectmen a while ago voted to allow remote meetings, so that would be moot, right? We still could do that if we wanted to. And I understand that there's certain, exemptions under the current system as far as quorum and such, but I mean, having Zoom meetings would still be allowed as long as we've just already allowed remote meetings, correct?
To answer the question, if someone chooses to.
Madam Moderator, through the previous speaker, before the pandemic, the open meeting law allowed for limited remote participation by board members. There had to be a quorum of members present, and if a chairman of a particular board allowed or determined that it was impossible for a member to be present at a meeting, that member was allowed to participate in the meeting if certain protocols were followed. But otherwise, the open meeting law has traditionally required what's known as a corporeal convening. It's kind of a creepy sounding thing, but corporeal meaning bodily convening of the membership rather than by Zoom. The open meeting law doesn't care whether the people watch on TV, Zoom in on TV. I mean, the open meeting law does not cover that. But what the open meeting law does apply to are members of boards. Now, provisions of the open meeting law that allowed Zoom meetings were suspended by the governor pursuant to the Civil Defense Act of 1950. And for those who are interested in looking it up, you can look at Chapter 639 of the Acts of 1950. When the governor finally decided that it was a good thing for people not to gather in crowded rooms during a pandemic, the governor said, okay, we're going to suspend all those things that require it. So parts of the open meeting law were suspended. And as of now, those suspended rules will kick back into effect in April. So that goes to your question. More generally, as to your question on the legality of the proposal has two components to it. One deals with the question of adopting a bylaw that requires Zoom meetings. And then the second part deals with the question of, I'll call it mandatory citizen participation. I will tell you, as to the first part, I'll tell you I love Zoom meetings. I think it's great, and I certainly understand why people want to do it. It opens things up in a beautiful way. The problem is that when the governor lifts his order under the Civil Defense Act, we will no longer be able to do what it is that we've been doing. And so the further problem is that because of bylaws such as the one that's being sought to be adopted here is what we would call an inferior or subordinate kind of law, it would have no effect. In fact, that part of it would probably be stricken by the Attorney General were the body willing to adopt this. So that brings us to the second part, which I'll call, for lack of a better expression, mandatory citizen participation, because I think that's really the intent behind it. It's not an unusual issue for town meetings to deal with when they're interacting with their executive branch boards. In fact, you'll be interested to know that there's an opinion from the Attorney General dated November 13th, 2014, that dealt with Article 32 of the Dedham Annual Town Meeting. The Dedham Annual Town Meeting back in 2014 had a very similar proposal to that which is being adopted under I'll call it Part 2 of this proposal. And the Attorney General ruled that the proposed bylaw was invalid and that it conflicted with state law. I suspect that since state law, especially Chapter 30A, Section 20, subsections F and G, have not changed since 2014 in a meaningful way or in a substantive way, I think it's likely that the Attorney General will just simply dust off that Dedham opinion and say, you know, sorry, Wareham, I understand what you're trying to do here, but it was illegal then and it's illegal today. So, you know, it's not my place to say whether it's a good or a bad idea. I certainly understand the idea, but what I can tell you is that it is likely that the Attorney General, if this body adopts this bylaw, will disapprove it. Thank you.
Did that answer your question, Mr. Flaherty?
It answers my first question about the remote meetings. I mean, I respect your opinion. It'd be interesting to see how it goes moving forward. But I do have another question based on what he mentioned about the second part of the article, and that being, and you may have already answered it, but I thought the way it worked was if a board decides to, you don't have to have public participation, but if you do, then I thought you were required to hear everybody and you couldn't pick and choose. I thought that was like the case in Wayland or something like that brought that up. Does that ring a bell?
To answer the question only if someone chooses to. We have no answer for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. On my left? Mrs. Sandergate, you've already used your 5 minutes? Okay, you have a minute left. But, you know, I'll ask, do you wait to the end till everyone else has had their turn, if you don't mind?
Well, it's just a quick remark, a question in regards to what was just spoken by a former person in regards to, I would just like the public to know in regards to the second portion of this article about being silenced. I did go out to apply to be on the Finance Committee, but because I've been wrongfully silenced by the Board of Selectmen, I didn't get appointed. Thank you.
On my left.
Madam Moderator, I've got a question regarding this article. Is it possible that we could possibly split this article into Article 19A and 19B? 19A referring to the Zoom meetings, 19B referring to, as the attorney mentioned, the mandatory citizens?
I'm unwilling at this time to divide the question. I think that this was proposed by petitioners, and we'll let it go through as they wanted it to go through.
Madam Moderator, may I put a motion?
You may make a motion.
Madam Moderator, I would like to take a vote on Article 19A regarding Zoom meetings.
Do I have a second? I have a point on the floor right now, and I have a motion. Do I have a second to that motion to take up? Have a second. So we now will discuss the motion on the floor. If you would stay at the microphone, please, and restate your motion to divide the question.
Madam Moderator, through you to the body, I would like to propose a motion to divide the question of Article 19 to Article 19A, referring to the Zoom meeting, and Article 19B, referring to the mandatory citizen, as the attorney pointed out. Thank you.
And I have a second. So we now will discuss, and the question before you is whether or not to divide the question. This will require a majority vote. All those in favor of dividing the question to A and B, or B, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Motion is defeated. We now are back to the main motion. On my right.
As Lisa Morales onset, as one of the now I think 11 that are not allowed to speak, this body would not have heard from 5 of us this evening had we been at a Board of Selectmen meeting. 5 of us that just spoke.
Miss Morales, please stick to the point of what we're discussing.
The article. And the article is about people being able to speak because we didn't divide it. We have also been hearing from previous speakers that it's been conflated and confounded into something it's not. And I know that my son, for the last 18 months, had hybrid high school, 7 periods a day, 18 months without a flaw. The fact that one committee has not been able to get a grip on this is not the reason not to do it. We know what happens when we open up the citizen participation in this town. 900 people show up and vote, and that's what we don't want to see, right? So we want to make sure that when you go into a nursing home, do you give up your rights? Of course not. But in this town, you do. And at the very least, no matter what we put forward, it's a mandate. You're telling our board, this is what we would like to see, whether or not the AG approves it or not. We're saying, we elect you, this is what we want to see happen. It's okay if she turns it down. And just like any other rule, if something changes at the state or federal level and it becomes inoperable, it simply becomes moot. It's separable from everything else. So that's okay
30
too.
seconds.
So we need to support this. We need to support transparency. Again, 5 of us you just heard from would not have been able to speak had we been at a Board of Selectmen meeting. Thank you.
On my right. Please state your name. On my right.
I think I'm on the left. I'm looking over there. Brilliant. My name is Tricia Wirtz. I'm Precinct 1, and I'm the person that got named about doing the study on communications with the town and how we best communicate with our citizens. How do they want to be communicated with? How can we communicate with them? In today's world, Zoom is a primary mode of communication. I'm not going to repeat that we've used it here or we haven't used it here. If we really want our citizens to communicate with us more, we have to put Zoom in place for all the reasons we've heard. Governor Baker comes out of the technology industry. He cut his teeth on it. He understands technology. I'm willing to bet that he will stay with this. Even if he doesn't, we can't stand here and say, oh, well, he maybe won't, so we're not going to try it. We can't say, oh, it might get shut down at the state level. We're not going to try it. We need to try it. We need to believe in it. We need to believe in giving our citizens a way to communicate with us better. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have one more standing, and then I'm going to call for the vote because we've spent a good deal of time on this, and I don't think there's any new information that anyone can bring forward. Am I right?
Richard Swenson, I just have a question. First of all, I'm only speaking to the Zoom aspect, and I'm all for it. I support it completely, but as a board member in this town, we heard Mr. Schultz talk about the difficulties we've had at the planning board. We have done everything that we can to make it work. We have had the cooperation of WCTV in trying to make it work, and we have not been that successful. We did have what I think was a successful meeting at our last planning board meeting. My question is this to whoever could answer it. If we have trouble at our next meeting, assuming that this article passes and it is in effect, what are my options when it doesn't work? Do I have to cancel my meeting? Do I have to suspend it then immediately? And I ask this because I think that we haven't thought this through all the way to address issues like this. So if anyone could help me there, I would appreciate it very much.
Anyone can answer the question? We have no answer for you. Gentlemen, the person on my right, do you have anything new that you can add to this, something that we have not heard?
Yes, I do. Annie Hayes, Precinct 4. As soon as the Zoom started, I talked to a friend who had been elected to the planning board in Plymouth. They had gone to Zoom seamlessly, and I asked him to speak to his tech and have his tech called the planning board, and he said he had. I never heard what came of that, but there are certainly people in surrounding towns who've been very successful and that would offer their contribution as well as citizens. The second point is that 36% of the population are elders, and that's a large swath of people to insist come out on a dark, cold, slippery winter night. I think that is taking their vote or their ability to speak away. The select board has said that people can always watch on WCTV or YouTube a couple days later. I would say that governance is a participating sport. It's not exactly a sport, but and I also would encourage it to happen because the youth of our country are always referred to as less civically engaged. And if we cut off representative government and the right of people to communicate, not just watch, we're doing them a great disservice. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm now going to call for the vote on Article 19. Article 19 is before you. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Chair is in doubt. I'm going to call for a hand count. Would the tellers please come forward? All those in favor of Article 19, please raise your hands. The tellers please take a count. Have all the tellers counted? In the front,
20.
in the front 20. On my right, on my right, 1313. In the middle,
49.
49. And on the left, 28. All those opposed, please raise your cards. Have the tellers completed their counts? Okay. In the front,
14.
in the front 14. On my right, in the middle,
26.
26. And on the left, 12. The vote is 110 in the affirmative, 59 in the negative. The motion carries by majority. Hold it. Yeah, 5. We're taking it up. 5. Article 5. Article 5, may I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Moderator, to see if the town will vote to approve.
Ladies and gentlemen, please.
I move to see if the town will vote to approve and fund collective bargaining agreements between the town of Wareham and the Massachusetts Laborers District Council Four-Persons Union, or to do or act in any manner relative thereto.
I have a motion before us. I have a second to speak to the article. Oh, wait a minute. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Selectmen voted 5-0-0.
I have the vote recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommended 7-0-0.
To speak to the article,
Thank you, Madam Moderator. This is a 3-year agreement with the Four-Persons Union. Just so you know, it does go back, so it will expire this June 30th. It is for the life of the contract for the 3 years total. The cost to the town is $17,633. Thank you.
is that the Four-Persons Union? I have a different motion, okay. Is there anything further to be said? Seeing no one standing, we now call for a vote. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 18. This is a petition article.
Article
Petitioner come forward.
Article 18.
May I have your motion?
I motion that the article be approved as presented on the screen, please.
Do I have a second? Okay, this article was placed on the warrant because the law required it. The legislative body of any town cannot interfere with the executive branch of town government on a matter which is exclusive authority of the executive branch. I will allow the presentation of the article by the petitioner, and if there's a second to the motion, I'll immediately call for a vote. There will be no discussion because this is merely a referendum. Mr. Cosgrove.
The purpose of this referendum is to urge, not demand, that the selectmen enforce our existing earth removal bylaw. It's not a proposal to amend or change the bylaw. It's to enforce the one we have. Why? Because the bylaw is a very valuable tool. It's an opportunity to raise revenue for the town, cut expenses for the town, protect environmental matters, and also create rules that will avoid cheating in the earth removal space. For the last decade, there have been a zillion trucks moving in and out of this town, as you know, carrying sand. But the Board of Selectmen has indicated, the town has indicated, there's only one earth removal permit in the whole town. How can that be? So I asked the question, why, and the answer given is because earth removal operators are not compelled to apply for a permit. And instead, a lot of them use the excuse, well, I also am in the bog business, so I'm exempt. So the question is, why doesn't the town have a system to prove up that exemption? For example, if you're 85 years old, you're on a fixed income, and you're eligible for, say, a $500 deduction from your property taxes, you got to go to town hall, you got to fill out all sorts of forms, prove your age, prove your residence, prove everything. Yet we have massive industrial scale earth removal operators going on that are subject to no such scrutiny. The bylaw is clear. It says if you've removed any sand without a permit, then under section 4H, the town shall instruct its engineer to measure how much sand's been gone and to assess fees and penalties. Well, the town already has in its possession documents from the representatives of the earth removal company that show that 100+ acres have been strip mined. All they got to do is read it. In one case, from 80 feet topography down to 64, another area from 71 down to 60. This is massive amounts of sand. And the job of doing that audit is 3/4 done. You just got to read what's there. The engineer does not have to go on the property to confirm it. Routinely, GIS remote scoping allows this to happen. The comment that this can't be done without search warrants is just not so. So what do? You got sand removed, you got no permit, you're supposed to instruct the engineer to figure out how much, you send a bill. Just like they send a bill to us when they say we owe for whatever. And then the person who receives the bill, in fairness, has the opportunity, just like Millie, who's probably still over at town hall trying to satisfy them on all the exemption documentation, they can try to prove that they're entitled to some discount. Hypothetical. If you remove 1 million cubic yards without a permit, that could be worth $9.3 million to the town. That's 14% of the town's revenue budget. That's $250,000 fees and the rest associated with truck trips. If they can prove an exemption and we get nothing, great, we get nothing. But why don't we at least try? The town urging, what the town needs to be urged, is it's not the town's duty to prove that an earth remover does not have an earth removal permit. The duty is on the earth remover to prove that he or she does. Earth removal operators who also happen to be cranberry operators are not entitled to take all the sand they want for whatever they want. The exemption is well defined in the bylaw. And moving sand from one division to another division to be mixed with rock and stone and sold to the public is not normal agricultural use. I'll wrap up here. Many people have said to me, oh, you're picking on ADM. Why'd you only list them? Because those are the 4 sites I did some homework on and the only ones I could speak to intelligently. Since then, everyone, Board of Selectmen included, Finance Committee included. Why didn't you include this guy? Because I didn't know. Why didn't you? Why didn't you?
Ladies and gentlemen
is right. A no vote on this is saying it's okay for our town to stick their head in the sand and keep it there. And it will empower earth removers. What do you think they're going to say tomorrow when they say, hey, the leadership doesn't care, and neither do the citizens? Please vote yes.
30 seconds. Oh, you're done, okay. I will now call for a vote. This is again a referendum. The legislative body only handles legislative matters. We cannot tell the executive branch what they can and cannot do. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes by a majority. Article 20. Article 20 is a petition article. Ms. Davis?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Leslie Edwards Davis, Precinct 1. I move that the town approve this article as written in the administration handout. To help everyone, it's the last page of the skinny administration handout in case you prefer reading it on paper, but I'll just summarize the points and how they might differ from the original article. So we...
I want to take your motion
to
and
just
make
read
sure
it.
we have a second, and then I'll let you speak to it.
Do I need to read the full language? Yes?
I'm sorry?
Do I need to read the full language of the motion?
No, the motion is as printed in the handout, so I'm going to ask for a second. I have a second, and now I will allow you to speak to it.
Okay, thank you. So, in brief, the motion does the following things. It puts pause on holding DECUS, the building and the property, holding it in town custody, and allows us some time to put together a committee that has now been vetted by all of the various boards as being more representative of our town, and includes members from the Select Board, from Capital Planning, from Council on Aging, from Community Preservation, and also from the body that has been working on this, the group of community citizens who have been working on this for months, doing all the research and looking at it from every angle. So it would give that committee time, and it would also give them a sum of $15,000 from free cash to do a study to investigate transforming John William Deacus Elementary School into a center to benefit the community, to use for community purposes, including but not limited to areas for our seniors to have their programming, for their Council on Aging, for after-school programs, for early education, for adult education, and a vast number of community uses. So those are the high points of the motion, that we would put together this committee, we'll study it, and we'll come back to a future town meeting, either in spring or fall, with a recommendation of whether we can use this building for community purposes.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Yep, the Board of Selectmen originally voted 1-4-0. After consultation and coming up with a good agreement we think that works for the town, we voted 5-0-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee votes to approve this article 4-3-0.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on this article? Mr. Camerano?
Yes, good evening. I've been there a long time. I think this is one of the best things the town can do and has had the opportunity to do in a very long time. Our seniors have suffered tremendously because of lack of space, conditions, and everything. And I think if this group can move forward to what they want to accomplish, I think it's one of the greatest things the town has been able to do in a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said? Seeing no one standing? I'm sorry, on my left?
My name is Muriel Slading. I apologize for my scratchy voice. I'm not used to being quiet that long. Can you hear me? Okay. It won't go any closer. The stand isn't good. Short people can't speak. Okay, there we go. Precinct 2. I have been involved with the Council on Aging for several years. I served on the COA board and am currently the editor of our Senior Beacon newsletter. The past few years have been a constant struggle for our Council on Aging. The lack of funding for 5 years and the cramped and undesirable space provided have limited their ability to offer a variety of programs to our seniors. For instance, seniors now exercise at the Wareham Free Library in the mornings. The reason for that is because the Catholic gymatorium and kitchen area are unusable for any program that needs privacy or quiet. The COA Board of Directors and our retired part-time director, Missy, have worked extremely hard to enhance our area and give our seniors a pleasant atmosphere in which to hold their activities. Still, they refuse to come back to the MSC, preferring instead to join Marion or Bourne. If you were to pay a visit to the Marion and Bourne facilities, then take a tour of our facility, you would be truly embarrassed. There's too many shadows here, I can't even see. Okay. The multi-service center is very difficult and sometimes unsafe for seniors and the handicapped to maneuver. When the elevator breaks down, it's impossible for some of our seniors to safely get around that building. Deacon School,
30 seconds.
Deacon School offers everything on one level, alleviating that situation. But this is not only about the Council on Aging. Deacons offers every demographic of Wareham an opportunity to come together in one location. This would be an efficient use of this building and would surely be a benefit to the town. I encourage everyone to vote yes on this petition. Thank you.
Thank you. Am I right?
Neil Sullivan from Onset. This is a very, very worthy project. I'm concerned about one thing. Right now, we're talking about funding $15,000 to take a look at it, but we're talking about what it states as minimal cost to the town. I'd really like to understand that and point out to everybody in the audience the financial condition that we're in. At the last meeting that we had in May or June, we talked about a lack of revenue and increasing expenses. We just put online a new school to take the place of Deacus, which is done fabulously and coming in under budget. We know we need a new police station. We know we need a new water treatment plant. We have about 200 units of 40B housing coming online in the next 18 months, which by estimates are going to put another 200 children in the school system. It's likely that we'll be here at some time in the next year talking about a Prop 2.5 override to fund some of these. So while it is an incredibly worthy process to go through this, the minimal cost to the town, I'm concerned that we're getting into the real estate business and we just simply can't afford it. So I would respectfully ask that if we're going to give the $15,000, that we have a plan to finance this in the long term and what the long-term costs are going to be for all of the citizens. So I thank you.
Thank you. On my left. Do you want to yield to the gentleman that was up before you? On the right?
No, Jody Santagate, Precinct 3. I just wanted to speak. I am a member of the Council on Aging Board of Directors, and on October 7th, we all voted unanimously 5-0-0 in favor for Deacus. Please support it. Thank you.
Thank you. On my right.
Madam Moderator, I'd like to use my reserved time. I didn't use my full 5 minutes.
I have someone standing, so
I can-
we'll go back to you and give you your remaining time after we hear from everybody. That's usually been the policy.
Diane Kenny, Precinct 6. We've been meeting for months working on this project. There's not one person in the group that's been meeting that wants to raise anybody's taxes to have a community center. We want it to be self-sustaining, and we have a lot of good ideas to make that happen. Had you been at any of the meetings that we've had over the last couple of months, you would have heard me say that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It will never come again. There will never be a building like the Deacus available for our use for these purposes. Never. So I ask you to vote yes on this article. Thank you.
On my left.
Hi, Debbie Ito, 41 Monac. I don't know what precinct it is. I'm the director of Turning Point, and I understand some costs might go to the town, but the benefits of seniors who'll be able to manage their bills better, who will stay healthier, and will get some attention that they need, some assistance, serious assistance that they need to be able to live on a day-to-day basis would far outweigh any costs. We see it every day, and something has really got to be done to address the issues. They're crazy out there, and I just hope you vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a little dark on the other side, but is there someone standing on the right-hand side? If so, would you come up to the microphone if you wish to speak? Thank you.
Sure. Jared Frederickson, Precinct 5. So to begin with, I'm just going to keep this quick because it's been a long night here so far. But this is, as the previous speaker on this side said, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We have a building here that will allow us to fill countless important community needs at a fraction of the cost of new construction. And there is a chart in this packet here that kind of discusses some of the budget and assumptions for it. But in terms of the financial concerns that a previous speaker also brought up, that's one of the reasons why we're establishing this steering committee, is to determine how we can best use funding and best uses for this property moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. On my right?
Annie Hayes, Precinct 4. I am in the neighborhood in a rural area, and I drive by that open space of the school every day, probably. And I've recently been to the Horseshoe Mill River Park, which is gorgeous. And I see that it's what the master plan calls for, open space for the citizens of Wareham, for kids to run and for seniors to be able to walk and have a garden and go down to the river. And the idea of developing it into an industrial park and extending the business district down to the river is abhorrent to me. I also come from a hardware family for many generations. And so when I took 3 tours to see how terrible the building was, I glommed on to the custodians and I asked them question after question after question. They have the most beautiful boiler room I have ever seen. Everything is brand new, sparkling. The roof is sparkling. It's a beautiful school. It's a beautiful building with a rare inner courtyard. There's so many features. I think I heard from somebody on the finance committee tonight when they were making a redecision that they really didn't know what it looked like. Everybody should look at that school. It is a lovely, lovely space. And to tear it down, to pay $1 million to tear it down, I'd say that's money we don't have. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Morales, Onset. This group has worked so hard to give you all of this information up front. There are already letters of interest from renters, people who pay money to be in these spaces. It will double the number of spaces we have available for Head Start. That's money coming in, that's grant money coming in, it's renter money coming in. We've got Hammond School sitting empty, not bringing in any money. We are already in the real estate business, if you didn't realize that already, but we have people ready, willing, and able to move right in and start this as a concern. This is going to be an amazing facility for Wareham, and it didn't matter who came up with the idea. It matters that we make it happen, and it's going to be self-sustaining. And this happens in lots and lots of other communities. Let's make it happen in Wareham. Thank you.
On my left?
No.
No? Okay. I see no one else standing, is that correct? And if so, Ms. Davis, then you have your remaining time.
Thank you. So we spend a lot of time talking about money and how we would make this work, and we looked at several towns that are able to actually return proceeds to the town based on lease agreements of their spaces for like-minded organizations. As a previous speaker mentioned, we have 2 letters from 2 organizations, South Shore Community Action and Damien's Pantry. When all told, combining the rent that they would bring in, they basically pay for all of the utilities, all the lights, all the internet, everything to run the building. That's just 2 letters based on an idea that doesn't even exist yet. Once this committee starts rolling and we start reaching out to all the different community partners that could come into this space, we will have no trouble filling up those rooms with community-minded organizations, educational related organizations, and bringing in enough revenue to cover this. They do it in other towns, and we can do it here. I also would like to say it's not cost neutral to not do this idea. $1 million to tear down the building. Maybe then we don't even find someone to lease or buy the space. Maybe the building is broken into while we're waiting to tear it down. There are costs for preventing vandalism. There are costs for security. There are costs for keeping everything on while we're waiting to decide. So it's not cost neutral to not do this. It's just different costs that you would be prioritizing over meeting existing town needs. Thank you.
Thank you. You see,
I just want to add something that I haven't heard yet.
would you please state your name?
I'm Zach Monty from Precinct 5. I just want to remind everyone, we heard some talk about a new roof, a new boiler room. We spent about $6 million on that school within the last 5 years. To tear it down would be nonsense. So please keep that in mind with your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one standing, I now will call for a vote on Article 20. Article 20 is now before you. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It is unanimous. Ladies and gentlemen, I know it's a passionate, but keep in mind, every article is just as important to the person that submits it. We have 2 more articles. Please stay. Have respect for the town and participate in everything and not just an interested article. We only have 2 left. Madam Clerk? Article 15. I have a motion on Article 15.
Article 15, WAHT modified quorum requirement.
Please speak into the microphone.
It's on. I move that the town approve this article as printed in the warrant.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, we voted 5-0-0.
I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee.
7-0-0.
To speak to the article, Mr. Muniz.
We're a board of 5. I think we're the only board in town that has a requirement of a supermajority to hold a meeting, but just a simple majority to pass any business. So we're looking to write that up and just have it so that we need a board, a simple majority to hold a meeting so we can do business. At times it's very difficult to do so, so I hope you'll support this article and help us move along. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 15? Seeing no one standing, I'll now call for a vote on Article 15. It requires a simple majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It is unanimous. Article 3, and I believe is this the last one, Madam Clerk? This is our last one, Article 3.
Article 3, prior year's bills and deficits. I move that the town transfer $69,496.99 from certified free cash to fund the fiscal year 21 EMS offset receipt revenue deficit.
Second.
I have a vote and a second. I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen voted 5-0-0.
And the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee.
7-0-0.
And to speak to the article.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. The explanation's in page 6 of the Finance Committee handout. And essentially, last year during COVID, we had about 300 less calls. People didn't want to call the COVID wagon, which was the ambulance when they needed to go to the hospital. You had priority calls driving themselves. They were so concerned about it. It led to this 1-year deficit. So this seeks to make it up. We had about 300 less calls altogether. So far through September, we have just under $420,000, which puts us right on track to be where we were before. So this would be a one-off. And this is to, by the Department of Revenue standards and the DLS, this is what we need to do to make that up.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing no one standing, I will call for a vote. This requires a 4/5 vote because it is a prior year deficit. I will try for unanimous so that we don't have to count. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, it is unanimous. Oh, I will now entertain a motion to dissolve this meeting.
Move to dissolve the meeting.
I have a motion to dissolve, and do I hear a second? This meeting is dissolved and has ended. Thank you for your participation. Oh, God, no. Okay. Don't blame you.